buddy? Not a like, it's not completely packed in here, so you'll stick out if you fall asleep. I told Jordan he could since he has a kid, and I won't take offense, you know? But no, hey, it's good to be with you this morning. Thanks for Tyler for reaching out, of course, Jordan and Chris. I think not only thank you for being here, I think thank you for what you're doing. I think this is really great. I mean, there is the power of one means a lot to me, and I think just in here this morning, just the ability to connect with one another, to hopefully to learn something, maybe even to learn what not to do, learn from my mistakes, and just to grow in general. So I think this is awesome, and I appreciate what you guys are doing in the community. So thank you for having me. Before I begin, I'm not to impact you or tell you what to do, but I'm a big note taker and I'm a big question asker. I'm probably even more so since I started the podcast. And as Jordan mentioned, my background is in athletics. I spent 20 years coaching. 10 of those years were also in athletic administration as an athletic director. But when it comes to, like Tyler asked me this morning, I don't drink coffee. Like I'm ready to go at about 5:30. And then after I have my cold shower, I'm really raring to go about 6. So I'm a fast talker. I'm somewhat intense. I know it turns a couple people off, so I apologize in advance for some of you that are maybe a little quiet and laid back and it's only 8 o'clock. But I like chaos. I thrive in chaos, so I like loudness. And every time I offer this up when I talk, it never happens. So I like somebody just to like raise your hand or yell at me when I'm talking or ask a question or stop me or whatever. It's not rude. So I know that doesn't fit with the community much, but feel free at any point when you're jotting down notes or you have a question, because I think sometimes people forget their questions. So if you have a question, feel free to shout it out. Fair enough? You can even throw something up here if you want. So this morning, I'm going to talk about personal growth. I'm just really big on personal growth and trying to continually get better, surrounding myself with people who are like that as well. And so it's just a big thing for me. As we go through this today, I'm sure depending on where you're at in your life, you're going to find that you're at one of these stages. You're probably at one of the others, or you're eventually going to be there. So just interested to see, how this hits each one of you. And I think it's important, before I talk here too, a couple things to keep in mind. I think the people that are best at this are humble, they're hungry, and they're never arriving. Like, I think you need to be, and this is probably a mindset and maybe how I'm wired, but I think it's, hey, I'm striving to be the best version of myself, knowing that I'm never going to get there. And that's okay. But I think that's really, really important. And I think just the humble part, the best that I've been around, they are very humble. But I'm also going to challenge you too, because I think this area, we're at times too humble, and we lack confidence or conviction in who we are and who we've been designed to be. And so I think there's a balance between all that. And then obviously there's got to be a sense of curiosity within that, and just continually staying hungry with everything that you're doing. And the second part is another thing. When I talk about humble, and then I'm going to go to this right off the bat, and you're going to think it's, counterintuitive, but you have to focus on you. When we talk about personal growth, I'm seeing it all the time. I meet with around probably 20 to 25 people throughout a month. People are not taking care of themselves, okay, consistently. I'm not doing it consistently. So leaders are really struggling with this part. And you might say, well, that's selfish. And I would push back to you. I would push back hard, because if you're not taking care of yourself, I don't know how you can expect to take care of others. Does that make sense? If you're pouring into other people, how can you pour into them if you have an empty cup? So, you got to find out what those things are. And the next thing is to have a white belt mentality. Who here knows about modern day judo or karate? Anybody know about that? Chris, I'm sure you've got into. Does anybody know where the white belt's at in the process? It's the first one. Yeah, it's the first one. All right, so that's the first thing we're going to do here. We're going to talk about Jigoro Kano. Okay, Jigoro Kano was the father of modern day judo. You might remember this from the Good Stuff Summit when Bernie talked about it. You may have heard this story. If you have, it's a great reminder. If you have not, I think it's probably one of the best stories I have heard of, and keeps me kind of focused or locked in. But modern day judo was a form of martial arts that originated. It was him and his disciples. They'd learn about this, they would apply it, they'd teach it all over the world. And so he was actually the first Japanese on the IOC, which was the International Olympic Committee. So they went overseas, and they were traveling to the IOC meetings. They were basically just trying to get it more recognized, especially in the Olympics at that time. Long story short, after being there, coming back on the big ship, surrounded by family and friends, he contacted pneumonia. And it was very apparent that he wasn't going to make it. So once they discovered this, all his friends and family, ultimately they just wanted to know, how can we, they went to him and they just said, how can we honor you? You are the father of modern day Judah. I mean, this guy was it, right? And they said, how can we honor you? And he responded by saying, I ask you one thing, can you please bury me in my white belt? And they're just shocked. Here's the guy that has just eclipsed all and is beyond everybody. So once again, the white belt is the bottom. The white belt is where you walk in with that sense of beginner's curiosity. You probably have some fear. You might have some fascinations. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And you're going to get beaten up. But you have to walk in with that white belt mindset as a true beginner. And so he wanted to be buried in this white belt. And at first his family and friends said, no way. We are not going to bury you in your white belt. You put judo on the map. Everybody knows you. Everybody recognizes you. We need to bury you with honor and respect. And he said, well, let me explain. I first came into this world as a learner ever before becoming a teacher. So whatever's waiting for me next on the other end, I want to have that same mentality. Always as a learner first. So can you please bury me in my white belt? I think it's just a powerful story. I think it highlights the fact that we can all be lifelong learners. This idea of that you're a learn-it-all rather than a know-it-all. I don't want to go with raise of hands, but you probably know some people that are like that, and the difference it is. And just a matter of, can you embrace the learn-it-all spirit? Good morning. And that metaphor of just wearing the white belt. I think that's really difficult, but I think the people that are elite have this ability. And so wearing that white belt, you're basically, I think you're willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and I think it's just seeking out discomfort, okay? Putting yourself in positions to learn and to grow. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know probably, but I think I'm pushing you in that area. But just being able to listen to anybody and everybody on anything and everything. I just told somebody the other day, my 7-year-old taught me an important lesson the other day. Okay, I need to be willing and open to learn from everybody, even if it is my kids. Even if it is my wife, Jordan, as much as that's hard sometimes, but, having an open lens, no matter what the situation is, I think is really important. So I think it's just a great way to go through life. Now, one of the keys to this to me, which I think is lacking in society, I think it's lacking in this area with a lot of guys, is vulnerability. Okay. It's vulnerability. I think it's just something that many of you, I guarantee you in this room, have black belt skill set or tools. Okay, you're probably really, really good at what you do, but are you able to embrace that white belt mentality with that? Because if you have black belt skills combined with that white belt mentality, I think you're going to take off. Okay, I think you're going to take off. So I think it's really, really important to couple that. So we're going to jump in here to these 4 stages of personal development. Like I said, I'm a little bit of a sicko with some of this stuff when it comes to preparation, when it comes to some of these things, just because of my background and because of how I'm wired. And I also think this is an abstract topic, which means different things to different people, wherever you're at in life and how you would define it. And I don't know that there's really a singular strategy for measuring it. But once again, we're going to dive in and kind of see, what stages there are. And then for you, it's just kind of defining what it means. I think personal development, the word at least applies that there's a progression to it. And so, you just need to see where you're at right now in terms of that stage and kind of where you're going. And so with the information that we discussed today and all these great questions you're going to ask, just kind of nail down some personal specifics and then see where we can improve effectively. So, awareness is a big thing too when it comes to these stages. I think awareness of where you're at helps you along this journey, okay, in terms of where you're going to become a better person and a better leader. I think by understanding where you are, you're going to take the necessary steps in your personal development. So I think it's really important as well. So here we go. Question.
Yeah, Kevin. The idea, you said it just a few minutes ago, and it's been percolating, so I apologize if I'm jumping back, but you said everybody in here has probably got some sort of black belt skills.
Mm-hmm.
Look, some of us have developed that organically, meaning that it's not readily available or obvious to us that those skills exist. We just accept that we can do these things. How do you help people see where they're strong?
That's a really good question, and especially once again, like I think the part of humble. So when I meet with people, the first thing that we start doing is self-awareness. I personally feel like you're better off when you can focus on that before situational awareness. Does that make sense first? So I think we just sit down and try to hone in on what those things are. Like I'm going to get to this in a little bit. I think a lot of it starts with passion, Chris. In fact, I'm just going to do it right now and I'll reference it if you don't mind. Whoa, I don't know what that is, but like if this was a passion and skill quadrant, this is like one of the biggest things I've seen when it comes to the difference in maybe athletics and business. Because I think in athletics, you're constantly focusing on the person and the role is always changing. For example, you play basketball, Jordan, you're going to get 15 shots a game, and then 3 games later, Jordan has not been doing anything, so his role is going to decrease. You've gotten 8 shots a game, but your production's been pretty good in those games. Your role is going to increase, right? They're constantly evolving, where I think in the business world, the thing that I see a lot of people making the mistake is, Chris, here's the job description. We come in and we interview you. You feel very comfortable. I'm good with these things. Here's your job. And then a month later, we do an annual review. And then I think that's where you start to doubt or maybe don't have much conviction in what some of those strengths are, because nobody's walking alongside you. Nobody's pushing you out of your comfort zone. Nobody's honing in on those things. I think the worst place for everybody to be in a business, and we would agree, is if you have no passion and you're not good at what you do. Okay, the key is, we want to have a great deal of passion. I mean, I think that's your why that fulfills that. And if you can couple that with the skill, I think there's a lot of people in businesses that are over here. They've got this skill, but they don't enjoy what they're doing. This is me washing the dishes. I love. Is this getting to where you're at, helping it all? Like I love washing the dishes, okay, but I can't stand doing them. So I will walk past the dishes as much as possible, okay? Now over here, this is me playing golf. I stink. My son now kicks my butt every time. I can't stand it, but I love it. Like it fires me up just to go out there, to walk, to be outside, to connect with him, whatever it is. And so I'll keep going back out there. And so I think it's just ultimately, you're going to hear this again today, it's connection. We lack connection, and in businesses, we need to be connecting more. I don't care how busy you are. You need to develop relationships and walk alongside people and pour into them. And the more you're around them, I think of my best relationships are built on love, on trust, on care, and spending time with people. And then I'm able to have those transparent conversations that you're alluding to talk to people about that and put them in wherever they need to be. I don't care if it's a workshop. I don't care if it's somebody else connecting, whatever it might be, so that they can hone in on what those things are and believe in themselves a little bit more. Fair enough, or did I not answer it? So I think discovery, okay? I think discovery is a big stage. I would imagine that most of you are not in this stage, but I could be wrong. I don't want to assume. I think, though, at different parts of, it's crazy because, like, at 25 years old, I was a head coach at a college. I already discovered what I wanted to be, and I was going to be that forever. I had to rediscover things, okay? And for me, it was 2018. I think in discovery, I think all growth comes from pain. I talked about this a little bit last year at was it the White Law Conference then? It wasn't the GAP conference then, right? Yes, Small Business Conference. So, because I think without a reason to pursue self-actualization, you never start. Okay, you never start. And a lot of people just don't start. But I think every person goes through a period of darkness, and I hope you've already gone through that, but there's a challenge that's in your life. And I think this is where most of us discover the power of self-development. For me, it was December 18. It's almost going to be 4 years. December 18, 2018, I had neck surgery. All right, long story short, 6 to 8 weeks, I'm at home. I don't know if you can tell, but I can't really sit still. And it was a tough time for me. It was a tough time because I wasn't at my job as an athletic director or coach for the first time in almost, I think it was 19 years at that time. So I wasn't pouring into people. And when I pour into people, I get something in return. I was actually miserable where I was. I didn't enjoy where I was at. The culture was terrible. I'm trying all these things, but I'm not having the passion to go in every single day. Just that career perspective. And then obviously I'm going through a lot of pain. Long story short, I ended up going back, and then in April was brought into a meeting that I thought was planning some things because the doctor told me to take more time off, and I was asked to be resigned or fired. I mean, tough time, right? And so I think now you go home, you tell your wife, always a fun conversation, and then I wake up the next morning and it's go time. Like, I just need to embrace that. And so as difficult as maybe those challenges were, and I don't want to go back to that time, I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, it was the best thing ever to happen to me. It was it capitulated me to a much better version of myself. And then I was able to, we'll talk about here, go through some things over the course of the next 6 months that put me where I'm at. So, at some point you learn, you move on, you look for answers, but you have to discover, I think, what's best for you, for yourself, for your family, for others. I mean, I think this is a big, big stage. And sometimes we can have that self-limiting mindset, and we need to get outside of that. And I would also say throughout this process, it's that daily grind where the best leaders don't get bored in the mundane. Okay, the best ones I've been around understand, that daily, I call it chisel to the rock, just pound it daily, never knowing when that's going to break. But I think I would imagine sitting here for some of you today, the only thing that's holding you back from a level of discipline that will change or even transform your life for the better is that limiting mindset. I think all the capability of great discipline resides within you, but your mind self-imposes limiting beliefs. Okay, that happens to all of us. I don't think talent doesn't limit you. You have something. Time doesn't restrict you. And we'll talk about that right at the end. And people don't hold you back, and tools don't constrain you. I really believe your limitations with discipline are entirely self-enforced. It's a control versus not control. But I think that means your possibilities are too. And so when you believe in what's possible, rather than doubting or discrediting it or fearing it, then I just think you then discover capabilities that you've never tapped into or you've never experienced. So obviously I've spent a lot of time in this one, but I think it's really important because you've probably already done it, but maybe you need to do it again. But you have the power to be as disciplined as you need to be. And I'm telling you right now, from the athletes that I've coached, the coaches that I'm around, the leaders that I'm around, daily discipline is a major separator. I tell my boys all the time, it's easy to do it on the days you feel like it, right? What about the days that you don't feel like it? Steph Curry, sorry to make basketball references, Steph Curry does the same ball handling and shooting drills every day. Every single day. So he just has the ability to do something that, some of us don't or other players don't. So, yeah, you have the power to be as disciplined as you need to be. You just have to choose it. Like, you just have to make that choice. And also, at some point, you have to believe it. Okay, I think that's really important too. There's no way around these choices. You're going to have to make them. There's no way around your mind. Discipline happens through your mind, and that's where the discovery begins, within, as far as I'm concerned. And I think the other thing too, before we move on to the next stage, a big part of discovering what you're about, two things. We just talked about this a little bit walking in here. Everybody's different. Know what you need to fill yourself up. Sit down and make a list. What does it look like when you're best? Like, what do you need? Like, I have daily habits. that I'm knocking out every day. I'm not a goals guy. Goals end. I am a little bit. I know that's a touchy subject, but if I'm doing these habits every single day, I'm going to be the best version of myself. Like I just mentioned, cold shower. Some of you might think, oh, there's no way. That's me. And that doesn't, like, if Jordan can't do that, that's fine. If Linda can't do that, that's fine. They might have something else. Try some things out, okay? And then find out what works for you and then do it every single day. And then the next thing that you can't do, don't compare yourself. You know, if you go running 2 miles a day, I can't be like, oh my gosh, I hate running. I will never run again. I've run enough all my life. I can't do it. But I'm not going to compare myself to somebody else. That's the thief of joy, as you already know. Don't compare yourself when it comes to these things. At the end of each one of these two, I'm going to put up some questions. I mentioned journaling on this one. How many people journal? Raise your hands. 2? You need to do it. Like if you want to talk about, like I have some amazing prompts. If you don't know what to do or where to start, sit down for 5 minutes in the morning or sit down at the end of your night and just throw up on paper. Next thing you know, you might be talking about the Browns offense. You might be talking about a sale at Kohl's. You'd be amazed. I would try to incorporate that every single day if you can, or a couple of days throughout the week. But once again, I mentioned this earlier, when you're at your best, what does that look like? What are you doing? Sit down, write that down, and then find out what's getting in the way. This is a big thing with leaders. Okay, they don't really recognize or understand sometimes what's getting in the way. And once you remove that, okay, that obstacle or whatever that might be, that's a big thing. Okay, that's a big thing. All right, we good on stage 1? Jordan's not asleep yet. Stage 2, consumption. I love this stage. It's probably my favorite stage. Of course, 4 should be, but let's actually go back here. I think once you discover the world of self-development, you become hopeful, become energized, you become intrigued. You realize, like, man, I can turn my life around. I can become stronger. I can become more reliable. I'm going to become whatever I want to be, right? And so you just go on this binge maybe and this consumption spree. You read these books. You go out. You connect. You listen to podcasts, whatever it might be. And your thirst for knowledge is endless. Okay, you're just constantly consuming, and it's pretty easy to consume nowadays, right? I mean, you can get on YouTube, you can get on social media, and away you go. And I think when you're in this stage, you just keep drinking from the well. You keep drinking from the well. It's a great stage. I hope I never leave it to some extent, but I know sometimes I need to. And I think I referenced this a little bit earlier too. There's a lot in this stage you control, and that's a big thing. What you control versus what you can't control. And I think one of the things, and I'm going to do a quick exercise here with you guys. One of the main things in this, and I'll talk about this a little bit, but I'll also mention it now. When I was April 14th until October 18th, I think it was, the biggest way that I consumed, it's like you put a pin in the map. A coach told me one time, and just go 50 miles around. I think you can put a pin in the map and go 10 miles around here and meet with a ton of elite people. So all I did is I just called people. I just reached, hey, Chris, my name's Kevin. I see what you're doing. I'd love to connect. Yeah, you want to go to Cincinnati? Let's go and try some donuts and let's hang out. Like, I just connected. Jordan, can we get coffee? Can we connect? Linda, can we, we reached just, hey, I'd love to meet you. I'd love to hear about what you're doing. Removing myself and just finding out and consuming. I think the biggest way to get better in this consumption stage is connection. I alluded to it earlier with your people. Like, if you are not, listen, other leaders in this area want to pour into you. There's nothing to be scared of. There's nothing to feel awkward about. And guess what? You can pour into them as well. It's an amazing thing. Call like 3 people in the next month and ask them to go get coffee. All right. And I think, honestly, like, what do we have here? I mean, we have under like a dozen people. Like, I think in this room, you have a lot to add to people. Like, there's things that you have right now that you can benefit from each other. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to get you up and moving before you fall asleep, so I can tell a couple people are out of it. Okay, great exercise. I've done this like 4 or 5 times. I did it myself once at these exanos that I go to out of state with other leaders. It's called 10 Seconds of Wisdom. And as you can see at the bottom, it's 10, not 60. This is hard for talkers, okay? So here's what you're going to do. Identify something right now that you want to get advice on, personally or professionally. Okay, so think of something right now that whatever it is, you now are going to have a couple minutes to ask anybody in this room. Okay, so you get some great leaders in this room. They're going to pour into you for the next 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so think about something what is it? What are you struggling with? What do you not know how to do? What do you have a fear about? Okay, and the second thing is zero judgment. Okay, if I were to sit down and meet with you and open up to you because I'm vulnerable and I go straight to it, like I have no shame. So, hey man, I'm really struggling with this as a husband. What would you tell me? Well, Kevin, I'm not married, so all right, good. And then we move on, whatever it is. But no judgment. And then the third thing is, get you moving a little bit, you compete. I want to see who can get the most here in this amount of time. All right? Makes sense? Because I'm going to have you get up, and then you're going to find somebody. Okay, don't stay in your seats, get moving around. Find somebody and just say, hey, Linda, tell me your issue. Go. And then I have 10 seconds to pour back into her. 10, not 30, not 60, not 2 minutes. And then when I'm done, okay, she'll be grateful. Thank you so much, Kevin. Now, Kevin, what's yours? And go.
What's the scientific reason behind the 10 seconds? I'm just very curious.
Well, we're going to talk about that at the end.
I like to understand why. So.
Okay. Sometimes you need to think, and you're going to be, we'll see what happens with some of your answers. It's interesting. So at the end, I'm going to ask you not to share with me what your issues are or your struggles, but I want to know what you got out of the exercise. And you might say, 10 seconds is not enough time for me. I need 3 minutes, and that might be something that could poke a hole, in a response or when you need to act on your feet, So it's a good question. And you can definitely get into, but if you can get concrete, get to the point, it's hard. It's really hard. Okay, but yeah, it's also difficult, and I want to push you a little bit. I'm not going to sit here with a timer or slap you on the hand or make you run laps if you don't get 10 seconds, but I will be yelling at you a little bit. All right, let's go. Let's knock it out. Get up and find somebody, and then we'll do a couple minutes here. All right, go ahead. All right. All right, here we go. I'll get moving on stages 3 and 4 for you here. But all right, takeaways. First takeaway we have is it's not enough time, right? Yeah. I agree. I'm with you. It's hard. What else? Give me some. Yeah, I know. I'm just poking. What else? Give me some other feedback. What do you got?
I think it brought out that a lot of times when you're thinking about your first instinct is really your first gut feeling is kind of.
So in terms of the answer that they provided for you, you already kind of knew that, or it's in your gut, or?
But a lot of times you know what you need to. If somebody asks you, you know what the answer is, and then you start second guessing. The more time you have, you start second guessing, or you're really, if you was just going with your gut,
Yeah.
you would have been.
Self-limiting mindset, right? It's good. Good. What else?
So I think you shed sort of the niceties of things and you just kind of get to it when you only have 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So I might
Yep.
frame things or, massage it a little bit, but when you just like do this, right?
Yeah, that's like the sandwich method, which I'm told, be really nice and then squeeze the negative in, and then, so yeah, just getting to the point is good. Good recognition. A couple more.
This takes complete vulnerability.
100%. Yeah, it's good. One more.
Takes a good memory, which I'm bad
That's why you write it down in your hand, right? Like I said, I've done this like 4 or 5 times already, and it's amazing just the answers that you get. I love this exercise. I mean, and to your point with the time, it's like, if I'm you today, I'm finding that one person that maybe there was somewhat of a connection. Hey, can we go get coffee and going a little bit deeper, and finding other people. The one of the best answers I'll never forget, I was actually at Weaver Leather in a room of about 50 people giving a talk. And I was like, one more, and a lady raised her hand in the back. And I love this answer. But she said, man, because, the other thing too, some common answers, it feels really good for people to pour into me. It feels really good that somebody would ask me. And one lady said, boy, it's really humbling when I don't have the answer. And I have to say, sorry, I don't know. Because we just feel like we're given the ground rules in this time and the 10 seconds and the pressure, and we just have to provide something. And so how many times, sometimes as a leader too, do we just give them something and we don't even know if it was the right or wrong thing, but we feel like it's necessary. Speaking of the vulnerability, I know, and as some of you might know as parents, going up and knocking on the door and being like, hey, I'm sorry, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have, whatever it is. So I think that's something else to keep in mind too. But yeah, it's a really good exercise if you ever want to use, with your team. I think some questions to ask in this stage, and I'll get moving. But, what are you consuming, or what are you not consuming right now that you need to be? Is there something, like to your point, that, hey, it's out here, but I haven't started yet? And then who do you need to meet with? Like, get on it. Like, there are tons of people in this area. Maybe in 2023, you're going to find one a month, whatever it might be. I would just push you, and I would push you and push you and push you into that one. So stage 3, we've got the discovery, we've got the consumption, and now's the application. Like I told you, man, for 6 months, I was crazy. I was just going, reading podcasts and meeting with people, and just really, trying to find that passion and next step, as we talked about with that quadrant. But, it's easy to stay in consumption stage, I think, sometimes, because it's comfortable. I don't have to push myself. I don't have to get out of that zone. I don't have to, confront those fears, if you will, but you can't consume forever. Okay. You can do those things, but at some point you have to apply. Okay. You got to live what you learned. And, that's this one. So you got to apply it to whether it's your life, whether it's your health, whether it's your career, business, you have to embody the knowledge that you've required. And so you can't keep doing, the same things and expecting different results. All right. I don't go to the gym ever, and I expect to look like The Rock when I wake up the next morning. It's not a good method. So you just, and this is, and I'm going to talk about this at the end, and I'll say this again, but it's a process. Like, kids nowadays in the society we live in, they want it in the microwave. It used to be put in the oven. I tell my boys to put it in the crock pot. Let it sit there for a while. But it's just having that awareness, having that understanding, that it's a process. Okay, it's a process, and it reminds me of, okay, this is a hole in the street. All right, this is actually a poem. It's not mine. I don't know if you've heard this before. When it comes to some of these things of maybe doing things a certain way. But there's 5 chapters to this story. And chapter 1 is, I walk down a street, there's a hole, a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault, and it takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2 is, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend not to see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault, and it still takes a little bit of time to get out of it. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it's there. I fall in. It's a habit, but my eyes are open to it. All right, there's some awareness there. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. And chapter 4 is, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5 is, and this is what we're talking about in terms of application, I walk down a different street. And so sometimes I think, we get so engraved with some of those same things. And I think when you're in this application stage, some good questions is, now, you're consuming something. What do you have to apply? Okay, you've been consuming something maybe for a month, maybe for 6 months, whatever it is, it's time. Okay, and that goes back to that obstacle at the beginning we talked about. And then what's a step you can take to create the outcomes that you want in your life? Okay, just starting small and just taking one thing, I think, is huge. Okay, I think it's really huge. And then stage 4, finally, this is where we want to be. Okay, this is once you've learned and applied your knowledge successfully, you want to share it with others. Okay, you want to teach as a leader. You want to pour into people, and this could be at home. This could even be with friends. Of course, this is coworkers, teams. Heck, maybe even strangers. And so you don't necessarily go through the self-development process to become a teacher by profession. But I think everyone, I've met that's improved themselves also wants to inspire others. Okay. You don't really also even have to tell them to improve. They'll just be able to see it. They'll be able to feel it. You're setting the right example, and I think you'll inspire some others to do the same. And I think that's the real purpose of teaching. And I think in order to be a good leader, something to keep in mind always in this stage too is you have to be a good follower still. Okay, that's huge. Okay, that's huge. And I think sometimes people forget it. A couple things, though, that I will mention just to kind of guard yourself against. When you get to this stage, you sometimes get very complacent, for whatever reason it might be. You're set in your way. You think that you've arrived. You've got a great deal of pride because you know it all. You're not that learn it all. And then I think you really need to understand and see what phase or season you're in. Hopefully you're in that teaching stage all the time. But I think you're constantly, as a good leader, adjusting and adapting to certain situations. So I think that's important. And ultimately, at the end of the day, guys, I think in this stage and just in general, you need to serve. I just, when I'm feeling down, when my emotions are getting the best of me, when I'm having a bad day, when I'm all about me, whatever it might be, I just stop and I go serve somebody. And it just changes everything. I think it just changes everything. And so you just got to get out of your way and just, make it about somebody else. And then in this stage, what's it like? So if you're teaching or if you're a leader, I would ask some people what it's like to be on the other side of you. Because what you think it is and what it is are two different things. And when you discover what that is, I think that's going to really change you as a leader. I think it's going to change you as a husband or father, wife, daughter, whatever it is, whatever role it is. What's it like to be on? It's kind of like, has anybody ever listened to themselves like on a video or a tape or recording? You're like, I don't sound like that. Yeah, you do. I don't lead like that. Yeah, you do. And that can be tough because that's maybe not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And then just what is it? What is your Achilles heel at this point? You've got something that you're struggling with, at least for me too. Like if I'm bad at it, I just surround myself with people that are good at it and just get out of the way. But, there's got to be something that could be restricting you. But, these are the 4 stages. They're not mutually exclusive. I think it depends on the area you're focusing in. I might be a 3 when it comes to personal productivity. And Jordan can still be at stage 1 when it comes to self-reliance right now. It's not a comparison, but this sums up these stages. I think if we're lucky, we spend the majority of our lives in the final stage. But all stages are technically great places to be. And I think it beats stage 0 where the majority of population live. And that's in the state of unawareness. And I think anything beats that. Before we end, I think it's important to keep these things in mind. I said it a little bit earlier, but everything is a process. Okay, that's a buzzword and a big thing in the athletic world. Like Ryan Day doesn't care what you think about him being soft or that you don't like the Buckeyes anymore. He's 45-5. It's a process. You know what I mean? Like it's a process, and everything is a lesson. Okay, good or bad. Sometimes people only look at these wins and losses or the bottom line. And I think that goes to my next point. Like the biggest thing that I miss about being a part of a team in the athletic setting is you're a part of a journey. You know where you're going, but you really appreciate and value each step in the way. Okay, that's something I think that can get lost sometimes in the business world. You're focused on that goal or where you got to meet that number or whatever it is, and you don't enjoy the journey. Okay, enjoy the journey. Be more concerned with the journey than you are the destination. And then just have that teachable spirit. The best players that I ever coached, the best leaders that I'm ever around, they're absorbing and asking questions. They were watching film. They were in the gym early. They were in the gym late. There's leaders that are constantly sending me stuff or asking me things now. It's just where you're at. And then the last thing that I'll leave you with today, I think as we leave here today, we all have one thing in common. Anybody have an idea what that one thing is? What do we all have in common? That 10 seconds was not enough time. We all have 24 hours in a day. All of us. Like when you wake up tomorrow, Chris and I have the same amount of time. And my competitive spirit might get in the way to try to do more than Chris, but what am I doing within my 24 hours? Okay, I think there's no limits to what you can do with your personal growth. You just have to commit to it one day at a time. All right, and I'll put my information up there. If you're a podcast guy, you can screen that if you want to listen to the podcast. Obviously, if you ever want to connect with me, shoot me an email, send me a text, whatever it is, and we'll go from there. But thanks again for the opportunity to be here again. I appreciate it.
Is the GapCon podcast up?
Almost.
No.
Yeah,
Nope, it's not.
looking forward to seeing that one.
Yeah. Time for questions, or does anybody have questions, or?
Well,
we good to go.
I think for me, I can tend to find myself in all 4 stages at the same time. And it can be a little bit overwhelming, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good awareness. And then I think it's just, I guess I'll share, we were talking in that 10 seconds. I think it's just, what are you focusing on? The older I get, the more I realize that multitasking is not a great thing. Like I can't put 70% to this, 20% to this, and 10% to this. You know, I've got to focus on that one thing to be effective at what I'm doing. And so to your point, I think it's just knowing, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I got to get done before I move on. It's good though.
So I would say as a lady, that it never ends, so get comfortable with it. Yeah. I mean, if you're pushing yourself, you're always gonna be in that cycle, it depends on what you're talking.
For sure. Anything else? All right, good stuff. Thanks.
Thanks, dude.
Appreciate it.